Ire, surprise, confusion, wounded pride, anger, and utter disbelief chase across the ugly resuscitation of history of woes, retrogrades, aberrations, and abysmal corruption that characterized the former president's era. There is a total need to search through precedents and events of yesteryears in order to evolve them in the current. The massive corruption is an ode to every day and a paean to the prosaic. The tragedy of dunces like Diziana Madueke still revolves around us. The bitterness of our colossal looting went into the making of this enchanted hell we are wallowing through. It was a darkness that soaked every being and joint of our economy. The pestilential apocalyptic horror show that was Diziana Madueke could be compared with Abacha loot. When she was paying her pilot 10 million naira a month, Nigerians cried out to the president, but he walked with perfect unconsciousness of a child without care. Level-headedness and utter lack of self-pity are great tragic combinations. They go a long way toward defining courage. The abysmal lack of courage and political willpower to check corruption under his watch fluently contributed to the catastrophe of the current dispensation. He lost something vital, such as a feeling of purpose, when he refused to probe NNPC because he supposedly could not probe his own sister. Such unpatriotic leaders that place ethnicism before the country are not worthy to even be remembered in the new Nigeria. Again, his lack of courage was abundantly portrayed when he cowardly relinquished power without a single logical question. Why did the electoral beavers not capture his thumb on his polling station? As a president and the first citizen, if he did not vote, then who voted? These are extreme absurdities that fail to define the prerequisites of a new Nigeria. Touring the infrastructural landscape of Nigeria after his watch was like going through the brain of a deranged madman. In such a mental framework, we can expect to find no plan for the future or memory of the past. In the brain of a madman, only the foaming present exists, with its endless shouting urges, paranoid speculations, and unrealistic grandiose assumptions. For an essential quintessence, the common Enugu-Onitsha expressway was thrown to the winds. It became a disastrous death trap that took many souls. It was an egregious aberration because this politician got almost 90% of the Southeast votes. The Aba-Poroko highway also received the same abnormal summary. He made all these Southeast roads simultaneously sinister and oddly banal, a befitting mirror for his bucolic leadership. The human mind, they say, under pressure puts on some old jumps and jumps. Maybe that was his predicament. But lest we forget that the same pressure allowed his predecessor to complete a crucial infrastructure like the second Niger Bridge. He also abandoned such essential link that permeated the heart of Southeast. The drainage of Niger River to allow a coastal belt for the Southeast also was abandoned. These are legendary history that could have put his foot on the sand of time. He sat on the throne of history but refused to write himself into history. The whole Southeast rode in utter solidarity to enthrone him, but he defiantly neglected the area. Solidarity means little more than the compassionate impulse that leads a brother to comfort a brother. That one comfortable word, unionism, was thrown to the winds during Jonathan's reign. He portrayed the unmistakable, half professional and half resentful of someone who has taken over a business and suspects he could have done better elsewhere. He was unprepossessing in attitude and unfit to be a president. Some will say it was a serendipity he wasn't prepared for. Fate had played a trick and thrusted him into a pedestal beyond his expectation, an oversized shoe that didn't fit his foot. So why are bleeding hearts clamoring for him to come back? Has he forgotten something in Aso Rock that he inspired to take back? Recalling his political mistakes is like listening to a poetry reading by a corpse. His name stands for unquestioned inefficiency and of misery and waste hang around him. Nigerians have also forgotten Dasuki and how this politician distributed state funds in millions of dollars to his cohorts. When you load enough tension on top of fright, you turn it into anger. Send as enough pressure turns coal into a diamond. The massive impunity under him makes us think of bad ideas, blown investments, forged checks, deteriorating health, contemptible corruption, empty promises, lost ambition, dead hope, and hopeless despair. He awakens the back part of our brain, the part that is perfectly capable of believing in tragedies, when the sight lines shorten and the heart is uneasy. Charm and decency don't always go together. His charming attitude and spurious decency attracted emotional and illogical sentiments to him. His unwarranted capitulation engendered a cataclysmic changes that turned Nigeria upside down. By even the wildest best definition of catastrophe, he brought it largely by his cowardice, though some bleeding hearts are describing as the best that could happen to the country. Yet his best only allowed a long series of suffering that has become eternal. Since then, unhappiness has distorted the country as it can distort a person. Everything else becomes a rationalization provoked by his mortal mistake. His attitude was an offense in everything Nigerians want, need, and believe in. The sycophants that surrounded him sang his praises while looting the country blind. It became a thoughtful exploration into the nature of corruption, a compassionate portrayal of Nigerian sovereign, an unsparing expose of his ineptitude. His ministers ran unchecked. They were inconsiderate, thoughtless, and riddled with grandiosity. They became the evil rats under the floor of progress of the country. His praise singers made him believe he had done his absolute level best, and under normal circumstances that his level best is good enough. Certainly, Nigeria was a poisoned and irradiated brain, but not totally dead after his watch. He still twitched a tenebrous life. When we consider that rudeness is forgivable, but stupidity is not, we eschew all faithless creatures from a reborn Nigeria. The obsolete time to use the physical fist had gone, and the time to use feather has come. A new Nigeria must be devoid of activistic ways of doing business, where the survival of the fittest is the code. This Darwinian theory should be completely obliterated from our new skin of things. Leaders who have no conception of such human flaw as mercy should not be allowed to tempt us with their ephemeral charm. Nigeria as a people suffer from the memory loss called amnesia. Essentially, it is a selective memory loss consistent with people who completely forget about their past histories. This disastrous disease made Nigerians unseemly. Or how do you explain the clamoring for the return of a banal, unimaginative scenario? The vile promises of pathological grandiosity that never see the light of the day should be observed as paranoid speculations and endless shouting urges. The destructive era of politicians that are ruled by heads, ethnicism, nepotism, favoritism, and insatiable thirst for power is fast coming to an end. These are shameless dunces that use power for food and drug. While good things take long time to develop, evil has a way of popping up full-blown and ready-made. Nigerians must insist in long-term commitment to usher a brand new country where justice, fairness, accountability, peace, and true patriotism will reign, where every Nigerian will have a sense of belonging, a true originality, and an urge to defend his country. Journalists are the medium, the aperture, through which otherwise prohibited places, events, histories, and circumstances reach the general public. But the spurious eulogies sung by our journalists renege on truth, factual profiles, and the negative nostalgia of past existence. The youth need to be educated on the past histories, profiles, and circumstances surrounding our present predicament. There are factual stories of why the country is stationary. When journalists commercialize their integrity and eulogize failed individuals, it amounts to disservice to the country. They must endeavor to tell the story as it is, so as to allow the youth to choose between good and bad. A state as bounteously endowed as Nigeria couldn't afford to be punitive to her citizens without default. There must be a compassionate portrayal of our country's suffering, an unsparing expose of our leaders' ineptitude. When stories are riddled with thoughtless, inconsiderate grandiosity, they deny the public the choice to make good selection of their leaders. The people must be warned against joining a visual caravan of the shocked, the grieving, and the merely curious in mournful pilgrimage that is Nigerian today. Essentially, this is the function of the journalist. The situation in our country today is volatile and on the verge of spinning out of control. and the general public need to know what brought about the pertinacious penury that has become eternal in the country. Show me a journalist who is too good to record facts, and I will show you a journalist that won't turn a hand the rest of his life. Nigeria is a land of ago, where things never change, where compassionate, honorable, modest, and responsible men succumb to baffling, multifaceted transformation, disorders, and develop mysterious symptoms called Nigeria factor once they become politicians. The falsity of our journalists help in the final corrupt transformation of these politicians. Journalists see differently than ordinary people who aren't journalists. When they look at someone, they wonder what that person is capable of doing and the story behind his capability. The possibility of non-existent story never enters their mind. Everyone who isn't a journalist carries a story or has a story to tell. But when these stories are twisted and laundered because of financial gain, the positive part is written while the negative suffers a neglect that will become detrimental to the public. In every democracy, the journalist stands as a mirror to